In 2018, something happened that boxing fans still talk about, not because it was competitive, but because it was a lesson in humility. A towering British fighter with a 21-fight win streak, confident and undefeated, made the classic mistake of underestimating his opponent. More than that, he openly mocked him. When asked about Naoya Inoue, the Japanese star known to hardcore fans as the Monster, this brash challenger chuckled and said, "I still don't know his name. I just call him Inoue." He acted as if the five-letter name was too complicated to pronounce, and even worse, he carried himself as though Inoue wasn't worth the effort. Perhaps he thought Inoue's quiet demeanor was a sign of weakness. Maybe he figured that being taller, heavier, and undefeated meant he had nothing to worry about. But in boxing, ignorance isn't bliss. It's dangerous. When fight night arrived, that same British fighter stood 6 feet tall in the ring, long arms, broad shoulders, and a confident smirk on his face. He believed his reach and jab would be enough to keep the smaller man off him. His corner called for distance, urged him to use movement and stick behind the jab. "Keep your head moving, use the jab, stay on the outside," they barked, trying to prepare him for what was coming. But what they didn't realize, what many people still didn't understand, was that Inoue had built a career on breaking fighters exactly like this. He didn't fear reach. He didn't flinch at size. He walked through it. From the moment the first bell rang, it was clear that Inoue wasn't playing games. The Japanese phenom took the center of the ring immediately, inching forward with economic footwork, barely wasting a step. He began measuring distance, scanning his opponent's posture, and then came the opening combination, a sharp left hook to the body and an overhand right to the chin. Inoue had stepped up from super flyweight, and yet the power he carried looked like it belonged in a much heavier division. The British fighter backed into the ropes early, alarmed by the pressure. His jab, so confident in previous fights, became shaky and reactive. Inoue closed the distance and began tearing into the body, throwing hooks that sounded like baseball bats hitting leather. Less than 90 seconds in, a savage combination sent the Brit tumbling to the canvas. He got up, dazed, but he was already swimming in deep waters. The monster was hunting, and the ring suddenly seemed small. The crowd knew what was coming. Inoue pressed forward again, sending lefts and rights crashing into the head and midsection. His opponent folded into the ropes a second time, and that was the end. The referee waved it off, saving the Brit from further punishment. A man who had once ridiculed Inoue's name now knew it intimately, having had it etched into his memory by fists and fury. That performance might have defined the year for many fighters, but for Inoue, it was just the beginning. Later that same year, he entered the prestigious World Boxing Super Series. In the opening round of the tournament, he faced Juan Carlos Payano, a tough, experienced former world champion who had never been knocked out. Payano came in prepared, bouncing on his toes and taking the role of aggressor from the opening bell. He wasn't intimidated. He pressed forward with jabs, trying to get Inoue's attention early. What followed, though, was more brutal than anyone could have anticipated as Payano stepped in behind his jab. Inoue responded with a textbook 1-2, jab to blind, straight right to devastate. The punch landed flush and Payano crumbled instantly, as though the lights in his body had been shut off all at once. The crowd gasped. Even Inoue, stoic and focused, looked slightly surprised at how quickly it ended. 70 seconds. That's all it took. Payano lay flat, his limbs stiff, and the referee didn't bother with a long count. That single shot sent Payano on a one-way trip to the canvas and earned Inoue the Ring magazine's Knockout of the Year. Just like that, the monster had made another statement to the world. As the tournament progressed, Inoue faced Puerto Rico's Emmanuel Rodriguez next. But in the days leading up to the fight, tensions escalated outside the ring. During a press event, Rodriguez's trainer aggressively shoved Inoue's father and coach Shingo Inoue. Naoya didn't retaliate. He didn't even flinch. He just stood there with his arms folded, eyes locked forward, knowing he'd get his revenge, not on the trainer, but on the fighter representing him. When the bell rang, Rodriguez showed up to fight. He threw stiff jabs and clean right hands, refusing to back down. In the first 40 seconds, he actually looked impressive, landing shots and pushing forward. Inoue, ever composed, absorbed the early flurry, and then retaliated with calculated violence. He dug in a left hook to the liver that made Rodriguez wince. Then came a combination upstairs that sent Rodriguez reeling. Inoue sensed the beginning of the end. Another sharp shot to the body crumpled the Puerto Rican. He rose, trying to tough it out, but his face said it all. He was hurt badly. Inoue didn't hesitate. Another left hook downstairs dropped Rodriguez again. When he got up, the look in his eyes was different. He wasn't fighting anymore. He was surviving. Inoue didn't let him. A final left hand to the liver folded. Him for good, and the referee stepped in. Rodriguez had come into the fight undefeated, confident, and proud. He left battered and bewildered, a victim of Inoue's surgical savagery. Inoue's power and timing had become legendary, but so had his precision. Against a fighter like Kohei Kono, who was known for his chin and durability, Inoue didn't need 10 rounds or even 5. He walked him down, calculated the angles, and delivered right hands so accurate they could have been guided by laser. One clean shot sent Kono into the ropes. The next sent him down. The fight was over before it had really begun. And this wasn't a random journeyman. Kono was a respected champion, and Inoue made him look like a novice. Then came a fight with Tomohiro Kiyama, a hard-nosed contender who thought aggression would be the answer. He rushed forward, determined to impose his will. Inoue let him have his moment, until one thunderous right hand landed. The punch stopped Kiyama cold. His knees buckled. He dropped instantly. The fight had barely started, and it was already done. As his knockout streak grew, so did his confidence and following. The boxing world had taken notice. Fans, promoters, and former legends began to call him one of the most dangerous punchers in the sport. Pound for pound. He wasn't just winning. He was annihilating top-level fighters in the blink of an eye. In one of his most significant early step-ups, Inoue faced Omar Narvaez, a highly ranked Argentine and former two-division world champion, with an iron jaw and veteran guile. Narvaez had shared the ring with some of the best in the world and had never been dismantled. But against Inoue, he barely lasted a round. The Japanese phenom began unloading within 30 seconds. 2 right hands landed with terrifying speed, and Narvaez fell as if struck by lightning. He got up, pride pushing him forward, but Inoue had already broken his right hand in the exchange. Most fighters would play it safe after such an injury. Not Inoue. He simply switched to his left hand. A series of crushing left hooks dropped Narvaez again. When the bell saved him at the end of the round, the Argentine was a shell of the man who walked in. Inoue ended it in the second with a combination to the body that forced Narvaez to fold to the canvas, unable to rise. After recovering from injuries and a long layoff, Inoue returned against Warlito Paredes, a heavy-hitting Filipino who had never been stopped easily. But Inoue looked sharper than ever. He bounced on his toes, relaxed, grinning at times, slipping punches with ease. Then came the heavy artillery. A sharp right hand knocked Paredes down. He rose, glassy-eyed, and Inoue greeted him with a flurry of punishing shots that forced the referee to intervene in the second round. Paredes would later admit he had never faced a fighter with such composure, timing, and power all at once. The next test came from the United States. Ricardo Rodriguez, a serious contender with a reputation for durability. Rodriguez was confident, aggressive, and had torn through his last few opponents. But Inoue, with the eyes of a surgeon, dissected him. Early in the fight, he landed a slick 1-2 and began testing his range with jabs and body shots. Midway through, his corner instructed him to increase the use of his left hook. Inoue obeyed with violent effectiveness. He landed a perfect hook that sent Rodriguez sprawling. The American struggled to get up but couldn't beat the count. Another win. Another knockout. Another name on the growing list against Yohan Boyo, a tough and battle-tested French fighter. Inoue again showed that he could adapt instantly. He started fast, throwing with intent, his punches sounding off like gunshots. Boyo tried to stand his ground, but one left hook to the liver dropped him to his knees in agony. He managed to get up, only to be met with more punishment. A second body shot, this time with a bit more malice, folded him in half. The referee waved it off. Inoue stood calmly in the corner, emotionless as the crowd erupted. There's something chilling about the way Inoue finishes fights. It isn't wild, it isn't frantic, it's calm, deliberate, and calculated. He isn't just fast and strong, he's surgical. He reads opponents like textbooks and finishes them like final exams. Time and time again, fighters believed they could take his power, that maybe the hype was exaggerated, that they'd be the ones to break the myth. But each time they found themselves on the wrong end of a knockout, some frozen in place, some gasping for air, some questioning their careers. What sets Inoue apart is not just how many fighters he knocks out, but the kind of fighters he does. Champions, veterans, undefeated warriors. He finishes them all the same. And those who once struggled to pronounce his name, they remember it forever now. Naoya Inoue, the monster, the man who speaks softly and punches like a freight train.